St. Joseph have been polled by various newspapers at random surveys, and the response seems very much favorable. Now, we know St. Joseph is also very much a marginal seat. It was under the helm of the People's Partnership in 2010, but since 2013, they have not been able to gain that seat. However, moving forward, since his announcements of the candidacy as well, there have been issues surrounding the SSA and serious allegations made against them. Well, this morning they joined us via Zoom. I'm speaking of Gary Griffith, political leader of the NTA and also former Commissioner of Police. Good morning, sir, and welcome back to AM Prime.
Hi, good morning. Good morning to your many viewers and listeners.
Well, Mr. Griffith, thank you very much for joining us. Now, you have already responded to the press conference on Tuesday, referring to it as political attacks, even stating that it's immature. Since then, the Minister of National Security has spoken out saying, though he is constitutionally responsible for the SSA, do not blame him. This is nothing to do with his fault. I see that you're laughing. Come, tell us your response, please, as to the latest statements from the Minister of National Security.
I'll tell you why I'm laughing, because I was the Minister of National Security, so I'm fully aware of the role and function of the Minister of National Security. It seems yet again Fitzgerald Hines does not. Remember, he was the same minister. It is not his role and function to look after the safety and security of the country. So his comment again shows his ignorance and not understanding his role and function yet again, because the SSA comes directly under the Minister of National Security, not the Commissioner of Police. So his pathetic, comical attempt to try to put me into the bacchanal or the fiasco being labeled with the SSA at this time, how that has nothing to do with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and then obviously nothing to do with who was the Commissioner of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So it is really pathetic. And the sad thing is that, you know, we are so caught up in politics in this country, certain persons will actually believe him. The SSA is like something happens in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force and you're trying to blame the Commissioner of Police for it. That is what they've done. They have done this whole thing, which is the reason this is about hydraulic in Ireland. When they discovered that I am going up as a candidate for St. Joseph, immediately that triggered a panic response, because who in St. Joseph virtually can win the general election? So now PNM had 22, they've now lost one, it's down to 21, that's one down, one more to go. Panic set in, you call the ministers, go and do a press conference to attack Gary Griffith. If you look at the Express editorial today, I mean, it said it all. So the attacks that it is very unfortunate, it is comical. The SSA has nothing to do with myself. He is ultimately responsible. So to come and say, well, I didn't know about it, and try to play Shaggy and say it wasn't me. You are the one responsible to try to come and speak about Gary Griffith because of the bacchanal that you have discovered in the SSA under your watch. It shows the lack of leadership and responsibility by Fitzgerald Hines.
Mm-hmm. Now, in that respect as well, we also heard of allegations made against you, and it's linked to funding or support from allies of Trinidad and Tobago. Do you think that with any allegations that there should be an investigation, even given your position as former Minister of National Security, my apologies, and Commissioner of Police, wouldn't you support any investigation into any allegations of wrongdoing?
Yeah, well, remember, this is something that happened almost 4 years ago. So obviously the investigation would have taken place and there was nothing. So Amy Brown now has egg on his face, because if you look at the front page of today's Guardian, it has a prisoner who was killed, beaten to a pulp by prison officers. So what is Amy Brown going to say now? What is Hines, what are they going to say now? That they're going to shut down the prison service? That the prison commissioner is to be blamed? That the US is now going to stop funding because of what happened with the with that prisoner? Total nonsense. The ignorance of, apart from Amy Brown has now showed how short-sighted he is, apart from him just being short. So he has now sighted it. So it shows his total stupidity and his desperation to get back in the lower house after he was kicked out like a dog by Keith Rowley previously, because he was Manning's boy. And his desperation now to try to impress Keith Rowley with his stupidity. You're a Minister of Foreign Affairs and you have done nothing, not one thing of any bilateral agreement to assist Trinidad and Tobago with national security. Not one thing as a minister. You have failed miserably. I remember Suraj Rambachan as Minister of Foreign Affairs. Almost every week, that man had a bilateral agreement or something to assist with us, with our international allies. The only thing you could come up with is to state that the US put a sanction, the US were concerned over a matter that up to now, this was the matter with Swart and the two individuals who died whilst in police custody. Up to now, not one person has been arrested. So how can not one person has been arrested or blamed for this incident as yet? And you are saying that the US is trying to say, well, we are going to shut down all funding because of a situation that we don't know, because there were other police officers and other stations involved whilst these individuals were under police custody. And up to now, you don't even know who was to blame. So it showed the ignorance of Amory Brown as well. So even though the Express editorial allows persons to read it today, they only attacked, they exposed Fitzgerald Hines' incompetence. Amory Brown has just as much to play because, as I said, look at the front page of today's Guardian. You're seeing a person who was beaten. So this one is absolutely worse because this one actually states that the reason why this person died, and it was confirmed he died whilst under the guidance, of the prison officers. So I would like to know if, and you know what is sad is that the media would not challenge these politicians in the government to ask Amory Brown, is it that the US are now going to put sanctions? Are you going to blame the prison commissioner the same way you blame Gary Griffith? Because if I am to be blamed because of the action of 7,000 police officers at any time, how come when there have been 100 other odd police killings after I left, how come the US don't want sanctions for those? How come you're not blaming McDonald Jacob or Ulla Christie for? How come you're not blaming the Chief of Defense Staff for the Coast Guard incident where persons died whilst under their control? How come the US is not going to shut down funding because of this situation on the front page of today's Guardian? Amory Brown has just shown his ignorance and he's totally unfit to be a Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Do you believe that since you've announced your candidacy for St. Joseph, that you are now deemed as a threat to anyone who holds that position, that seat? Because Terence D. Elsing even responded saying that how you're not going to be allowed to fool the people of St. Joseph.
Well, as I really hope Terence D. Elsing sticks to his day job, which is that of being a pharmacist. It's definitely not being a Minister of Health or a Member of Parliament for St. Joseph, because he has been missing in action on those two. So him starting to sing and automatically try to give a response based on that announcement, it shows the panic button set in. The PNM can get Barack Obama. They're not going to beat Gary Griffith in St. Joseph, especially if it is that hopefully it will be a two-horse race. And that has always been the situation. Anytime that there's an alliance of parties, especially in St. Joseph, similar to what you would have seen in 2010, the PNM would be defeated, and usually who wins St. Joseph wins the election. So this is exactly, you're correct, this is exactly what happened. It is not by chance that for 3 years, we knew about the situation with Swart. We knew about the situation with the two persons who died whilst under police custody. And all of a sudden, you just decided to do a press conference on it. And let me clarify again. The misinformation is mind-boggling, because even the Prime Minister misled, I will say lied, because this was on a political platform. He stated that Gary Griffith said that these people died because they fell off a chair. That is a total lie. I never said that. This equates, and what I said, and we clarified once and for all, the media asked me for an update on what happened. We said that the individuals were held. We discovered by speaking to their family that these men have been involved in a lot of actions similar to this. The information we got from the family is that when these people are held, sometimes these women are raped and they're tied up in the forest for 24 hours. So the officers knew that they had 24 hours to find Andrea Barrett, or else she will die, not knowing that she was already killed. And with that, obviously, these officers would not want to do anything serious, bodily harm to these individuals, because they needed to get the evidence to find out where she was to have her rescued. When there was an altercation that took place between both, I then said they were taken to the hospital. They asked him if it is that he would like to have a bed. He said no, he preferred to be seated. Whilst being seated, they offered him something to drink. He then collapsed, and then when he collapsed, the doctors checked him, and then they failed for him to be able to recover. How could that mean that I am stating that the man died because he fell off a chair? Our media cannot be that clueless. It is like saying that you left home, you went to the supermarket to buy a soft drink, and then you got in a car accident. So that means I'm trying to say you got in a car accident because you bought a soft drink. Our media needs to understand basic English and stop trying to change interpretation to try to sell and get headline news.
So then, thank you for giving that clarification. So, now the other clarification that is necessary is that the Minister of National Security has stated in that press conference, and I'm quoting him directly, as it refers to the Strategic Services Agency, we are now aware that it was he who made those 4 military-type weapons available to the SSA before the 1st of November 2023, end quote. Again, what is the truth or your truth in response to what the Minister is stating?
It shows the desperation and the total ignorance that the Minister of National Security has as it pertains to the laws. And the Prime Minister, to start with, when the Prime Minister said Cabinet only gave approval for SSA to carry firearms after November. Cabinet could never do that unless it's a communist country. Cabinet could never give authorization for people to carry firearms. But Keith Rowley actually believes he's that type of dictatorial person, because remember, the Integrity Commission, the Industrial Court, the Commissioner of Police, the Director of the SSA, anyone who is a threat to him or who does not bow to his actions, he will automatically try to remove. So in this situation, again, the desperation of trying to allude that I gave authorization. I am a commissioner of police. There are 7,000 police officers. So every time a police officer draws a firearm in a Rima station, in a Tobago station, I am responsible. I am the person who gave authorization. Fitzgerald Hines and Keith Rowley, they cannot be that clueless. And then to state that a permission was only given when it is cabinet, as I mentioned at the start, cabinet involve politicians. Politicians cannot give approval for firearms. Well, who gives approval for firearms? The Constitution, the law under the Firearms Act, or the Commissioner of Police. The Commissioner of Police can give firearm approval for a man who is in charge of a supermarket. The person gets an FUL, and then if the other individuals who work with them are properly trained, they do the proper background check, we do the due diligence, they get something known as an FUEC. The audacity and the stupidity of the PNM to believe that the SSA should not have been using firearms before November last year. Let me explain, Trinidad and Tobago. The SSA equates to the CIA. You can think that the CIA up until November last year, these officers can't use firearms. These individuals comprise persons from the Defense Force and the Police Service. So to start with, once you're a member of the Defense Force and the Police Service, you become seconded, for example, into the SSA, which means that you're a police officer even if you're not in the police, in a police station or a department, because you're seconded. It's like saying the 10, 12 officers who guard Stuart Young and his family without any threat, why are they carrying firearms? Because they're not under the police service? No, they are police officers, so they will carry firearms. So the ignorance of Fitzgerald Hines and desperation. So as I said, the CIA equates like with the SSA. So if you have SSA and their role and function is to go in vehicles, go in hotspot areas, go in that drug block, go and sit down there where their life could be a threat at any single time. They are supposed to be guarding and patrolling all of the CCTV installations that were being put up in volatile areas, hotspot areas. You're telling me that these persons are supposed to tap a pillow or a big stone to protect themselves if they're attacked? I mean, this is mind-boggling that a government could be so clueless to not understand national security.
Now, if the government and the two ministers during the press conference on Tuesday are spreading misinformation or misleading the public in any way, would you say that it's libelous what they're suggesting about you?
Well, yeah, if you look again, as I asked the country to look at the front page of today's Guardian, it shows the double standard hypocrisy, if not incompetence, of Amory Brown. Because if it is you claim that the US had such a concern about Gary Griffith, and mind you, there's a video that I actually sent showing the US ambassador actually telling Trinidad and Tobago they are very fortunate to have someone as me as a commissioner of police. No one from the US government ever expressed such comments to any other citizen of this country. They're definitely not going to say that about Amory Brown. And again, if that was the case, look at what happened on the front page of today's newspaper. The media should ask Amory Brown, is it that the US are now going to pull funding because of what happened with the prisoner? Because it is no different. So it shows the deceit by these individuals, likewise with Fitzgerald Hines, coming and having the audacity to say that anyone in the SSA should not have a firearm until politicians gave approval. And so it shows, and again, to explain to the country, you need to understand, instead of being political, sometimes you just need to listen to the facts, listen to the data, and then you will take sense from nonsense and be able to separate it. What they did was spend 90 minutes, and they wasted 90 minutes of the lives of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The country wanted to hear, what are your crime plans? What are you going to do to make me safe? Amy Brown, you're there with Fitzgerald Hines. What have you done or you intend to do with our international allies to assist us in improving our policing, public service protocol, technology units, systems that can assist in improving our response, systems that we can have with a proper tactical unit? What did you bring? That is what you commit. So after all of these years as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, you do a press conference that is really involving national security, and you have not come up with one thing to be able to show to the country, this is my input and availability to bring things from outside, from our international allies, to make you citizens feel safer. So you have a national security press conference, and you did not come up with one thing to make the country say, look, they are in the right direction. They are coming up with not one policy, not one plan, not one program, nothing except Bartok Gary Griffith for 90 minutes. I don't think they do that for the opposition leader. But that is the concern. That third constituency, that bridge constituency, is always the determining factor to decide the results of the general election. And this is all because that announcement of St. Joseph, it has rocked them back and flattened them.
Do you plan on taking any action against these two ministers for the comments they made about you in public?
No. Fitzgerald Hines is already in court with me on about 3 other matters, where it is he lied to the country and said that I approved to bring in weapons, that component parts that can change a semi-automatic into an automatic. That is against the law. That is a criminal offense. So he will be going on a witness stand and explain to the court, show us when that happened, because if I did that, I should be arrested. If anyone took that and changed their weapon into an automatic, they also should be arrested. So anytime Fitzgerald Hines and Keith Rowley also, he's been in court with me for 2 or 3 other matters. So they will be in court. But in this situation, all they did was to misinform the public. And I really hope the media will now ask Amy Brown. So it is not that they did anything defamatory. What they did was just basically mislead the country and lie. So when Amy Brown spoke about SOT, what the country, the media should ask, but we had over 100 police killings in the last 3 years. How come the US never had a concern about this? How come they didn't want to pull funding? Why just on SOT? Because we remember the Mova shooting, we remember all the others. How come you're not blaming McDonald Jacob and Ulla Christopher? What about the Coast Guard situation where persons were under the custody of Coast Guard and they were killed? Is it we're going to shut down Coast Guard? Is it you're blaming the Chief of Defense Staff? What about the situation right now with the prison commissioner? Are we going to shut down the prisons? Is the US Embassy now going to shut down all fundings because of what we have on the front page of The Guardian? That is what the media should show to Amy Brown, to show his incompetence and his failure as a Minister of Foreign Affairs. As it pertains to Fitzgerald Hines, the media should say, are you trying to say that the SSA, that's the front line that is supposed to be going out in volatile areas all hours in the night to get intelligence in hotspot areas and working when being alongside criminal elements, they are not supposed to have a firearm? Are you trying to say that police officers and soldiers who are assigned to the SSA, they are not supposed to be carrying firearms? Are you trying to say you as a civilian can state that cabinet can give approval for people to carry firearms? Those are the questions that should be asked to these 2 individuals, and it would expose their failure, and that is why their ministries have failed.
Now, with the time that we have left, Mr. Griffith, I just want to transition to your candidacy for St. Joseph. Like I mentioned, reports in 2 daily newspapers suggest that, mind you, this is an informal approach, but in their polls, you have had favorable responses thus far. The question is, though, what are your plans for St. Joseph? What do you want to see happening for St. Joseph? What do you plan to do should you actually be successful in your campaign?
Well, it's not should, it's when. But I think it's really making sure that I will do what it is that other members of parliament, or many, they do not do. That's accessibility. And the reason I have proved that's a track record. I have been the most accessible person in public life, just about. And this is not a blowing trumpet, it's a fact. You know that. How many people in public life give their private number to say, look, you have a concern, any problem you have, call me directly. And remember, that was the number we had. And the reason I did that is because at that time there was lack of trust and confidence in the police service. It was 8%, and it moved to 59% when I left. And the reason I'm stating that is that if it is that through my leadership, working with other people, we could have transformed the police service that was seen as the least trusted. I intend to do the same thing in every single arm in the public service to provide what St. Joseph needs and they were never able to get. So that concept of accessibility and actually being there to serve the citizens of St. Joseph, that is what I intend to do. I intend to make St. Joseph safe again. I intend to make myself, as I said, very accessible, hearing their needs and concerns. And as I said, the same way I operated as a Minister of National Security, as a Commissioner of Police, they are going to be able to see me. I mean, you even saw it in local government election. When I actually walked the ground, no politician would have ever done that. I mean, I worked for about 8 hours every day for that 2 months. I worked in areas, in PNM hotspot areas. We're speaking about all through the hills in Lavantil, Sealots, Beetham, Tunapuna, St. Joseph, the hills in Arima, San Fernando, Sangre Grande, Cameron Road, Paramin, Simeon Road, Scorpion, and Carnage. And in places, and these were PNM hotspot areas, and they said they've never seen the Prime Minister or even their minister, their member of parliament. I intend to do the same for St. Joseph. So even though I will be in government and most probably may be a minister, that I think has always been the problem, where members of parliament, they become ministers and they forget their constituency. That is what poor Terence has done. Terence is a good lad, I like him, but he's one of those who you have forgotten who put you there, because you spend most of your time in your ministry because you love the SUV, you love the door being open for you, you love the soldiers and police saluting you, you love the massive staff, because you don't like that little old member of parliament office because you don't have the perks. I'm going to do just the opposite. I'll be spending my time there in my office and dealing with serving the constituents of St. Joseph. And because of that, as I said, that seat is almost 50-50. And then when you come down with those type of voters who would have been ONR, NAR, COP, NTA, that rich constituency voters join in with another party, it speaks utter defeat for the PNM. And that is why all of this stupidity by Hines and Amy Brown has come about, because they've now lost one, and it's just one left for them to be out of government.
Mr. Griffith, unfortunately we are out of time, but thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning and for sharing your clarification on certain investigations and issues. And at this point, we await to see any response on the part, or any further responses on the part of either Minister Amory Brown or Fitzgerald Hines. But thank you very much for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime. When we return, well, a lot has transpired, but constitutional reform is once more on the books, and there are community cottage meetings taking place. Remember, you can submit your thoughts and suggestions. We'll share all that information with you when we return.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
We all want to live in a society where there's respect for the rule of law, public service efficiency, and high productivity. We each have a responsibility to help shape our constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, supporting good governance. I'm Nigel Edwards, and I urge you to submit views for constitutional reform by April 15th to constitutionalreform2024.gov.tt. It's your future, your constitution, your voice.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of at a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man has been the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Thank you for being with us again, ladies and gentlemen. The National Advisory Committee on Constitutional Reform is hosting a series of community outreach meetings across TNT to hear the thoughts of citizens on constitutional reform. Now, on Tuesday night, such meeting was held in St. Grandi. Last night, a meeting was held in Point Fortin. Tomorrow night, that is Friday the 5th of April, a meeting will be held in under the community of Port of Spain, Diego Martin, at the City Hall Auditorium in Knox Street of Port of Spain. To speak more about constitutional reform, the task of the committee, as well as these outreach programs, I'm joined this morning by Dr. Terence Farrell. He is the former Central Bank Deputy Governor and member of the National Advisory Committee on Constitutional Reform. He joins us virtually. Good morning, Dr. Farrell. Welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, Kitchen.
Well, thank you so very much for joining us this morning. Now, in respect to what the committee is mandated to do, what it is within their capacity, what it is they're seeking to do, the Prime Minister said these are not people being asked to craft a constitution, they are simply being asked to facilitate and advance a national discourse on the subject and to be the sounding board, the post office. So is it that this committee is essentially a house for ideas? Exactly what is it seeking to advise on?
Well, I can tell you what we are not mandated to do, and of course which we don't have the competence to do, and that is to actually draft the new constitution. We are not doing that. I think several other initiatives, and this actually is the fifth time that the country is attempting to undertake constitutional reform. So if you go back, you had the Wooding Commission in 1972-74. They had a report, but they also actually drafted a constitution. So they had a draft constitution. You had the Hayatali Commission in 1988. They did not draft a constitution because their work was interrupted. And then we had two draft constitutions by the Principles of Fairness Committee. That draft was done, I think, by Tajmul Hossain. And then there was another draft done by Ellis Clark in 2009. The Ramadan Committee, which was set up under the UNC, People's Partnership Government, they reported in 2013. They didn't do a draft constitution, but they did do an amendment to the constitution to reflect some of the things that came out of their report. Our committee is not mandated to draft a new constitution. What it is mandated to do is to essentially get the views of the public on reform, get the views of, which we are doing, getting the views of experts in constitutional law, in society, and so on, get submissions from various stakeholders who are part of the Constitution. Out of that, our responsibility is to develop a set of recommendations, and those recommendations will then go to a constitutional convention or conference or whatever you want to call it, which was indicated to be around June, but we are going to be finishing our work towards the end of May, early June.
Now, in that sense as well, and thank you very much for actually giving a historical background as well, that is important because why do you think now in 2024 that there is a need for constitutional reform? Why is this important for Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, the reality is that our first constitution, which was the Independence Constitution in 1962, was actually done in a rather hasty kind of fashion. You remember that the Federation basically broke up in 1961, and both Jamaica and Trinidad went very quickly to the United Kingdom in order to gain independence. So there was a very, very quick process to develop that first independence constitution. Our 1976 constitution, we did have a comprehensive report from the Wooding Commission, but the Prime Minister at the time, Eric Williams, did not take many of the recommendations of the Wooding Commission into account. So the 1976 constitution we have largely looks like the 1962 constitution, except that you replaced the Governor General with the President, and you took away some of the powers of the Prime Minister. But basically, a lot of what was in the 1962 Constitution is reflected in the 76 Constitution. And as I pointed out, since then, every administration has seen the need to reform the Constitution, to bring the Constitution up to date with what is happening in the society, what is happening internationally. I mean, I say internationally because while a constitution is about how a particular society wants to govern itself and the institutions it sets up to govern itself, internationally we have had some very important developments, for example, in respect of the United Nations international conventions on the rights of children. We've had on the status of women. We've had economic, social, cultural rights articulated by the United Nations. And Trinidad and Tobago has signed on to all of those conventions, but many of those things are not reflected in the current constitution. Moreover, we have seen that over the course of the last 50 years, the society has changed significantly, and we have recognized that in many ways it has not changed for the better. We have had increases in crime. We are seeing all kinds of things happening in respect of things like school violence and so on. And these don't presumably reflect us as a people, and therefore we need to have a constitution today that reflects essentially what we are today and what we would like to be, what we aspire to be as a people going forward. What kind of society, what kind of nation do we want our children and our grandchildren to be living in?
You've raised some very pertinent points, Dr. Farrell, and going back to what you've expressed with respect to the 1976 efforts and even the efforts under the NAR. Regrettably, we don't have the best history when it comes to constitutional reform. That being said, though you cannot give any promises and the committee cannot give any promises, how is it that you plan to allay any sort of fears that nothing is going to come out of this?
Well, let me say, what I've been saying to people is that I think that people's skepticism or even their cynicism about this initiative is not unwarranted, given the history. Although I should point out that some of the previous efforts were interrupted by external factors. So, for example, the Hayatali Commission, which was set up in 1988, was interrupted by the 1990 attempted coup. So they never got to complete their work. The Manning draft of 2009 was essentially interrupted by Prime Minister then Manning then calling a snap election in 2010. So that process got interrupted. To allay people's fears on this issue, I think what is critical is inserting, if you like, the views of the people coming out of the report that we do and the recommendations that we make, inserting the voice of the people into the process. And this is why this constitutional convention or constituent assembly or conference, whatever you want to call it, it will be very similar to the Queen's Hall conference, which we actually had in 1962 in crafting the Independence Constitution. That process is going to be a popular process. Hopefully, it is going to involve all stakeholders in the country, political parties, civil society organizations, NGOs, business groups, trade unions, and so on, broadly representative, and people can then articulate their views on the recommendations. And I think essentially instruct Parliament that this is what we want to see as a people going forward.
Well, thus far, the community outreach meetings have seen Sangre and Point Fortin citizens come out and have their voices heard and share their thoughts and opinions. But what has the response been like, the participation been like at these meetings? In fact, what are some of the concerns that have been expressed by those who have participated?
Well, quite frankly, the turnouts in Sangre and in Point Fortin last night have been really very, very good. The participation, I must say, has been excellent. People are not shy to express their views, and we are getting a whole range of opinions and views coming forward. I mean, people obviously are concerned a lot about the local issues that they have in their communities. One of the things that comes through, interestingly, is about the policing, the conduct of the police. Seems to be a very sore point with the population. People are concerned about corruption. People are concerned about unemployment, about joblessness. I think that one of the things that came through very strongly in our conversations in Point Fortin last night was that the Point Fortin and environs community, of course, has suffered considerably from the closure of Petrotrin, from what has happened in terms of the energy sector in that area. I think Train 1 has closed down and so on. So a lot of those issues came up last night, and people were voicing their concerns, they were voicing their frustrations and so on with that. And of course, they were expressing some skepticism about the process. And I think it's about our reassuring them that their voice is going to be heard, their views are going to be reflected in our report and recommendations, and that hopefully, if we have a properly constituted convention or constituent assembly, then we will see some changes to our constitution that are going to make the office holders more accountable for integrity, which goes to corruption, and for their performance, which goes to how we deliver public services and so on to the citizens of the country.
Well, I must say it is very much refreshing to learn that people are coming out and participating and expressing their concerns. That being said, what about the committee's responsibility, or rather their efforts, I should say, in educating the public? Even the chairman of the committee has said he's of the opinion that not everyone is aware or pays attention to our constitution. I mean, not fully understand the importance of what is taking place. So what about the efforts on the part of the committee to educate the public?
That is one of the things that has come through very, very strongly in the constitution so far in Sangre Grande and in Point Fortin. The constitution as it is currently together is a very voluminous document. I mean, it's 100 and something pages. If you include all of the other regulations that go with it, it's over 300 pages. And so therefore, it's not a handy kind of document for people to read and to understand. And one of the things that is coming through to us very clearly from at least just these first two consultations is that we need at the end of the process to be able to summarize the key aspects of the new constitution that we get in a form that is very accessible to the man in the street, to reduce it to a kind of a booklet that is very simply expressed that people can understand. And one of the models that I think that we could perhaps use is in Canada, while their constitution is, of course, just like ours, is large and voluminous, they have reduced it, particularly on the question of rights, to a very simple, accessible document, which I think is something that I think we are probably almost certainly going to recommend that we do in respect to whatever new constitution that we come up with in May, June.
Well, finally, Dr. Farrell, and again, thank you so much for joining us this morning. But there is a public forum to be held tomorrow night under the community of Port of Spain, Diego Martin. Who from the committee thus far is planning to attend this meeting?
Well, I think for the last couple of meetings, the chairman, myself, member Winston Rudder, member Ray Sandy have all been there. I think we will also be there tomorrow night in Port of Spain, and I think we are going to be joined by Hema Narayan Singh, who is another member of the committee. She will join us in the Port of Spain Town Hall tomorrow. I'm not sure about the other two members, that is Jackie Sampson, Miguel, and here Helen Drayton, both of whom have had some challenges in the terms of attending the meetings that we had in San Gregorio and Point Fortin, but they will certainly be present with us in terms of the other meetings. We have one carded for Rio Claro on Monday, and we have Tobago East, which is going to be in Belgarden on next week, Thursday. So those next week will be in Rio Claro on Monday, and we will be in Belgarden in Tobago on Thursday.
Well, Dr. Farrell, thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning, and we certainly look forward to continued participation on the part of the public as they have the opportunity to come out and have their voices heard and express their thoughts currently as to what is taking place and what they hope to see being done. So best of luck to you as you continue your hard work as part of the committee, and best of luck to the other members on the committee.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Shaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the very best. Ladies and gentlemen, as Dr. Farrell mentioned, the participation thus far has been good, and we encourage you to continue to share your thoughts and opinions. You can send your submissions by April 15th to the email address naccr.secretariat, that is secretariat @gov.tt. That email address has been up on your screen for the course of the interview, so we hope that you took it down and you will submit your thoughts by April 15th. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime. We'll be right back after this.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sierra Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. The Licensing Department and the TTPS conduct joint operations. Former Chief Justice funeral set for April 11th. Kufa resident killed, 3 others hospitalized in firebomb attack. Now for the details. Transport Commissioner Clive Clark has revealed ongoing joint exercises between the Licensing Department and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Despite potential public discontent, Clark emphasized the continuity of these operations over time. In a news report, he highlighted that the officers' actions align with the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act. Meanwhile, the commissioner, however, stated that he was unaware that members of the TTPS demand that persons remove their tint, even though this is not lawful. Former Chief Justice Michael De La Bastide will be laid to rest next Thursday. According to his widow, Simone De La Bastide, his official funeral will be held at the Church of the Assumption, Marval, at 10 a.m. After retiring as Chief Justice, De La Bastide was appointed as member of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. He later became the first president of the Caribbean Court of Justice. A tragic incident unfolded in Couva on Wednesday morning, resulting in the loss of 1 life and the hospitalization of 3 others after their residence was targeted in a firebomb attack. The deceased, identified as 25-year-old Tyrone Foster, known as Stefan, worked as a terminal worker at the Point Lisa's industrial estate. Foster lost his life while attempting to flee the blaze that engulfed his home located on Anna Yankaran Extension Street at the AGC Exchange Housing Development, occurring shortly after 3 a.m. Lester Foster, his uncle, was burnt badly and taken along with Layla Richards, girlfriend of the deceased, and Lorna Coffey, the mother of the deceased, to the San Fernando General Hospital for treatment. Well, that's City News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sierra Ali. Thank you for watching.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
We all want to live in a society where there's respect for the rule of law, public service efficiency, and high productivity. We each have a responsibility to help shape our Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, supporting good governance. I'm Nigel Edwards, and I urge you to submit views for constitutional reform by April 15th to constitutionalreform2024.gov.tt. It's your future, your Constitution, your voice.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. My next guest joins us in the studio. He's none other than the Minister of Public Utilities, the Honourable Marvin Gonzalez. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Ethan. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. It's indeed a pleasure to be in studio with you finally. I know most of the interviews that we have done, if not all, in the past, were Zoom interviews, and I thought it's important, given the collaboration that we have and the support that you continue to give to the Ministry of Public Utilities, especially in the water sector, it is important for me to come into the studio so that we can have this conversation and that the general population will understand and get a better appreciation of what we are doing to improve not only the utility sector, but particularly the water sector, because we have quite a lot of achievements over the last year, and we are looking forward to an exciting year of further improvements.
Certainly, indeed. Well, this is more or less a follow-up from our last conversation, which was about 3.5 months ago, when we spoke about the plans for 2024. And a couple of weeks ago, you announced the approval of a $160 million water plan, with the intention to provide 90% of TNT with a reliable water supply by 2025.
Yes.
So let's speak about what you've achieved thus far in 2024 and how it is that you plan on going about to achieve this by 2025, the components of this $160 million water plan.
Thank you very much for that. Now, 3 years ago, the coverage of the citizenry that had access to 24/7 water was 32%. The remainder of the population, some parts were enjoying 24/6, 24/5. Those are levels of service or class of service, as WASA would refer to them, 3 times a week, twice per week, once per week. And then you have a lot of communities that we call, or that are located on the extremities of the distribution system. You're getting water once every 9 days or once every 18 days. That's a very vicious cycle. So only 32% of the population was getting 24/7 supply of water under normal circumstances. And we were able to commence a number of interventions in several communities that had their unique challenges. Some of the challenges would have been as a result of lack of pressures to get the water up to high elevation. We constructed over 20 booster stations across the country. A number of those communities never had access to pipe-borne supply of water. We constructed a number of pipelines to get water to some of these communities, especially rural communities. We constructed 2 water treatment plants in Lopino and in Paramin, increasing water production to this level, to some of these communities. And we did some network optimization under our community water improvement program. 72 projects were successfully completed in record time, 3 years. And as a result of that, we were able to increase the 24/7 level of coverage from 32% to 61%. Last year, we commissioned a number of production wells. So in the Freeport area, 23,000 people had access. Their level of service was once every 9 days. We commissioned 3 new wells in that Freeport area. It increased water production by 1 million gallons going into that Freeport water treatment plant. We upgraded the water treatment plant in Freeport, and as a result of that, the 23,000 people that had a vicious 1 in 9 cycle, water cycle, moved to 24/3, 24/4. A number of them moved to 24, close to 24/7, the closer the community is located to the plant. So, and then we commissioned a number of wells in other areas. Our WASA's well production program has been very, very successful. Why it has been successful? Because we are targeting communities that are regarded as unserved or underserved, meaning communities that have a water supply schedule of 24/3 and below. So we did not conduct programs or implemented programs in communities that already have a reliable supply of water. And those communities, you don't hear complaints. You tend to hear complaints from communities that get water under 24/3, 24/2 to 1 in 9. Those are the communities that we targeted to do these interventions, and we have seen tremendous improvements. As a result of that, the Prime Minister was so impressed about these interventions. We have decided, the Cabinet has decided, that we're going to put $160 million. Those projects I told you about, 70-something projects, I was getting like $25 million at the start of the financial year. In the midterm review, the Ministry of Finance will look at the progress of these projects and say, okay, it's going well, let's get them another $25 million. And we were executing these projects quietly with just $25 million allocation, maximizing limited financial resources. And so successful that we've been, despite all of the challenges and the cultural issues inside of WASA, so successful we have been that the government has said, listen, this project, this program is a very successful program, bringing water to communities that struggled for a reliable supply of water. Let us now allocate $165 million to allow the Ministry of Public Utilities and the Water and Sewage Authority to undertake projects in other areas that we're having problems. So let me give you an example. In the Cedros Granville area, that area has been suffering for water for decades. So far, we brought a new well into production. In a month's time, a new water well will also come into production. We completed 2 major pipeline projects in record time, and water is now entering the extremities of the Cedros area. In Mayaro, we have commenced 3 wells, drilling 3 wells. One of the wells is showing great signs, will come into production perhaps in a month's time, and we are hoping that the 2 other wells will continue to show great signs. So the Mayaro area is targeted. In the Palo Seco Bennett area, that is somewhere in close to Point 14, La Brea area. Another area that suffered for decades without water. Just last night we had a successful community meeting, and that area we have targeted for the construction or the drilling of 10 wells under this program. So we've started the tender cycle, Keaton. In the first phase, 14 production wells, 10 in Palo Seco region, Bennett, some in Wallerfield, other in Valencia, and 2 in the Aruka area. That's under this $160 million program. Under the IDB program, because in addition to the $160 million TT, we are also operating an $80 million IDB loan program.
So that's 80 million US?
80 million US.
Right.
Very, very important. A number of components to that loan, but the IDB, under the IDB program, we have identified 6 wells for drilling. That is in an advanced stage of tender, and where those 6 wells are going to be located. 3 more in the Freeport area, where we had 3 successful wells that were drilled last year that improved the supply of water to 23,000 people. 3 more of those wells will be drilled again in the Freeport area to expand the successes that we've had last year. 1 well in Penal, another in Clark Road, and the other or 2 in the Tucker Valley area to increase water production for the people of Diego Martin. So you have 14 wells under the $160 million program, and under the IDB program, an additional 6 more wells. So this year, we are seeing a well development program over 20-something wells. And by the end, and we are confident, given the pace at which we are going, 22 production wells will be brought into operation in Trinidad and Tobago. It has never happened in the history of the Water and Sewage Authority. When I came in, it took 3 to 4 years to drill 1 well in Wassa. And we were able to cut down the bureaucracy, cut down the mismanagement, and ensure that our development program, our procurement processes and what have you, is robust enough to roll out these projects in a timely fashion to bring about the necessary changes and improvement in people's lives. So when I say we're going to move close to 90% of the population, I know exactly what I was saying, because we are at 61%. Given our well development program that for 2024, we expect to complete it before the end of the year, strategically in areas that are unserved and underserved. And those communities that are getting water once every 9 days or once every 15 days, Penal, San Francisco, in Maruga, in Charlottesville, in Mayaro, in Granville, Cedras, parts of Intoko and Manzanilla. Those are areas that we have targeted for increased water production. And the other projects that we will support it, and hopefully I'm going to get a chance to speak more about it, those communities will see a turnaround in their supply of water.
Minister, as Minister of Public Utilities, what would you define as a reliable water supply?
A reliable supply of water, in my view, is a supply of water at least 24/5, meaning you get water 4 days a week, 5 days a week, consistently. All right? You might ask, why not 24/7? 24/7 water supply is ideal. Do we get 24/7 supply of water? In a lot of cases, we do, because most of us have storage tanks. So whilst the water may not be in the tap from the distribution system in Wassa, on our scheduled days, we store water. Most of us store water for the days we don't have a scheduled supply from our taps. That is because a lot of areas don't have access to 24/7 water from their taps, and unfortunately people have to invest large sums of money to purchase their storage tanks, and on their scheduled supply they store water, enough water that will take them to their next scheduled days. So the engineers at WASA and the technocrats all around the world will say that whilst you may not have 24/7 water through your distribution system in the tap, you would have taken enough water from the distribution system that will take you from one cycle to the other. And therefore, in that regard, this is a customer that has access to 24/7 supply of water. So
what is it going to take for TNT to get to that point? I know it's not going to happen overnight, but yes, what is it going to take?
It is going to take a culture change, because whilst, yes, WASA can do its part and the government must do its part to continue to invest hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, to improve our water infrastructure, to increase production to meet the growing demands of the population, expanding communities, and what have you. As a population and as citizens, we have our part to play. We have to conserve and understand that we cannot waste water. And when we practice conservation at the domestic level, it means that the utility company can save millions of gallons of water that we can make accessible to unserved and underserved communities. We also have the challenge of climate change. We don't speak about climate change enough. We are coming out of a drought-like and a very harsh dry season that impacted our reservoirs tremendously through evaporation and what have you. Our underground aquifers were impacted because of lack of rainfall. Our underground aquifers were not recharging as they normally would in normal circumstances. So climate change is causing and continues to be a major challenge for water utility companies, not only in the Caribbean, but throughout the entire world. And therefore, as we grapple with the impact of climate change, governments now have to spend billions of dollars to ensure that your water infrastructure is sufficient and resilient to the challenges of climate change. It is not only about drilling new wells. It's not only about constructing new reservoirs. It's not only about rehabilitating aged infrastructure and automation. These things are very, very critical. But our behavior towards our environment and the way that we treat water as a universal good is very, very critical towards ensuring that we have water security, not only for this generation, but for future generations. So we have to change our attitude. Whenever we have issues with running tanks, leaking taps, overflowing tanks and what have you, these are things that we need to adjust. And so it calls for behavioral change and a change in our attitude towards the resource, ensuring as well that we don't pollute our waterways. These things are very, very critical. A lot of us allow plastics, leaking sewers to go into our waterways and impacting the quality of our water supply. The industrial waste, the oils and all of the industrial waste that a lot of companies dump into our water courses. These things impact the quality of water, resulting in the government having to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to treat the water so that it can become potable for consumption by human beings. In East Trinidad, we have a lot of quarry operators operating and bulldozing our rainforests. It is impacting the quality of water. So that's why in the rainy season you hear plants in Northeast Trinidad that has to be shut down because of turbid water conditions. These plants were never designed, Keaton, to treat the turbidity in the water that we get now compared to 20, 30 years ago. Because we are destroying our rainforests, because we are impacting our environment in a very negative way, our water quality is being compromised. And as a result, we either have to spend a lot more water, a lot more money to upgrade the infrastructure, or treat the water, or shut down the plant to allow the water to clear up before it is safe again to start pumping the water.
Raised many pertinent points, but under your purview as Minister of Public Utilities, one of the major issues as well, I mean, you've spoken about it as well, is the aging infrastructure.
Yes.
I believe that you, up to last year at the conference held at Hyde, you mentioned, is it a 700-kilometer aging pipeline? Yeah, so the infrastructure is aging as well. And you just mentioned this as well. These water treatment plants 20, 30 years ago were not designed to deal with these issues. So what about dealing with the existing infrastructure?
And you know, the $80 million US, $45 million US is going to be spent on upgrading our age infrastructure. Very unfortunate, I must say, because you would expect getting access to $80 million US, a lot of that money will be spent on drilling more wells, not only 6 wells, or constructing new water treatment plants, or doing a new reservoir. We haven't constructed a reservoir in Trinidad and Tobago, perhaps since the 1970s or the 1980s. This country has grown in population size exponentially over the years, and we have not constructed a new. Most of our reservoirs were constructed in the 1970s or the 1940s. You know, very, very long time. Given the expanse of our population, we should have been constructing more reservoirs to meet the demands of the national population. So coming back to the point that you made, $45 million or nearly $50 million, from my recollection, it's about $45 million US dollars, will be spent on upgrading the Guanapo water treatment plant. Major upgrades to Guanapo water treatment plant, and old water treatment plant located in Guanapo in East Trinidad, supplying most of the areas in Arima, Santa Rosa, and surrounding areas with water. A lot of that money going to be spent on upgrading that plant. A lot of money going to be spent on North Oropouche water treatment plant, another old plant, maybe 40 years old, going to be upgraded. The Freeport water treatment plant was constructed, I think, in the 1970s. Is also due to be upgraded under this program. The Navet water treatment plant, Hillsborough, Maraval water treatment plants. All of those old plants are going to be upgraded under this IDB program, and the Chatham in Point Fortin. All of them will be restored to their design capacity of water production because they have not been rehabilitated or refurbished over the years. These plants are now producing water below their designed capacity. So you have expanding population over the years, growing communities all over, and your water treatment plants are not being upgraded to meet with the growing demands of the population. They are actually falling in production because you're not upgrading them. Under this IDB program, unfortunately, I now have to bring those plants up to their design capacity so that they can provide the people of Trinidad and Tobago with a reliable supply of water for the next 10 to 15 years.
And spending half of that...
it is in my view, Keithan, I think it is very unfortunate where half of that money is being spent on upgrading old water treatment plant. Under this program, I'm only constructing 2 new water treatment plants. One in Goldsboro in Tobago that is going to produce with a design capacity of about 2 million gallons of water, and the other in Santa Cruz with a design capacity of 4 million gallons of water per day. So 2 new water treatment plants in Santa Cruz and the other in Goldsboro. Most of the money, a lot of the money going to be spent on age infrastructure pipelines in some areas, and aging infrastructure pipelines, and upgrading old water treatment plant. And another component is going to be spent on non-revenue water in terms of SCADA technology, automating a lot of our booster stations so that they will not be manually operated and what have you. So that is, in a nutshell, what the IDB program is designed to do.
So, and you intend to complete all these programs hopefully by 2025?
Oh yeah.
And
we are on course.
This is also in conjunction with the restructuring, and I see a major restructuring of the Water and Sewage Authority. So how are you balancing this? Because it's been suggested that 200 positions, managerial positions...
It is a lot to balance, because you are managing all of these projects and programs on the IDB, the $160 million that the government put again to roll out all of these projects to improve the supply of water. But while you do that, if you don't fix the management of WASA, then the government's investment to improve the supply of water the country will not experience the benefit of it because of mismanagement within the organization. So the government has indicated that one of the key components of the transformation of WASA is to restructure the management of WASA. The Cabinet Subcommittee report that was laid in Parliament in 2021 identified management as a serious cancer impacting the operations of the Water and Sewage Authority. You have a management with 8 levels. There's no company around the world with a management level of 8. So that's the reason why it would have taken 3 or 4 years to drill 1 well in WASA in the past, because of this convoluted management structure within the organization. So if the government the government is intent on ensuring that the billions of dollars that we are now spending, or the hundreds of millions of dollars that we are now spending to improve the supply of water for the population, to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that must be supported with the transformation of WASA, ensuring that we have a management system that will ensure that we get good spend for the money that we are putting forward. So the restructuring process of the management is well on the way. I'm hoping that the Human Resource Advisory Committee approves the recommended compensation package for the new executive. For persons who are involved in the union and the Water and Sewage Authority, I want to give you the assurance that nothing is going to be done with respect to the restructuring of WASA without the necessary consultation with all of the unions representing WASA workers. The first phase of the transformation is the executive leadership of WASA, and that is the phase or the level that is outside of the bargaining unit. So there is no obligation on the part of the board of WASA to consult with the union on the executive leadership of WASA, because those positions are not within the bargaining unit. But as the restructuring goes deeper at the lower end of the management level, where the workers that are part of the unions can be impacted, then the board is mandated to consult with the union and engage with the union in consultation with respect to some of these workers.
So in concluding, Honourable Minister, at the end of this project, at the end of the intended projects and the ongoing projects, we could hopefully see 90% of TNT facing a 24-5, 24-4?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many things happening at the same time. The IDB program, most of these projects are in an advanced stage of procurement, and in a month or 2 months' time, you're going to be seeing a lot of commissionings taking place. The new water treatment plants in Santa Cruz and Goldsboro, the refurbishment of all of these plants that I told you, all of that will be kicked off in the next 2 months. Our well development program, it's also in an advanced stage of tendering. In a month's time, you're going to be seeing all of these projects rolling out in some of our unserved and underserved communities.
You also mentioned the desalination plant. Was it in Moruga?
There's a small desalination plant that was already in existence in Moruga. I heard the UNC saying that it is an election ploy. It's not an election ploy. There was a plant in Moruga that was dismantled by the previous UNC government. So when I heard Barry Padarat say that it is an election ploy to construct a desalination plant, I am telling the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago today, there was a desalination plant in Moruga. There was a desalination plant in Moruga, and it was dismantled. What we are doing is putting it back.
Certainly. Well,
and the one in Charlottesville, there's an area in Charlottesville, very small community, I think it's about 300 people on elevated points in Charlottesville, and there's no well that is available, a groundwater well, and there is no surface water source. The only source of water is close to the sea. To get water to provide to these 300 people on the hills is a small desalination plant. Absolutely nothing to do with an election. It's technocrats going out there on the ground, doing the work, making the necessary assessments, making the necessary recommendation. You understand? Charlottesville, that's in Tobago East, it is a PNM health seat. Moruga is a UNC health seat. And if you look at all of the projects that we have rolled out, it's all over Trinidad and Tobago, transcending race, geography, or politics. Freeport wells that was successfully commissioned, that is in the Heartland UNC constituency. I don't think PNM will ever going to win that seat. So to say that we are putting a water treatment plant in Moruga and in Charlottesville because of politics, I think that is very unfortunate.
Well, Minister, we're going to have to end it there, but thank you very much. Unfortunately, but thank you very much.
2 weeks I can come back.
well, I mean, there's a lot more to speak on.
A lot more.
But in time to come, certainly. So thank you very much for making it to the studio this morning.
Thank you very
always
much.
Appreciate your time.
And thanks for the opportunity.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, bless.
Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for AM Prime. Thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. I'm Keaton Shaw, wishing you a safe day ahead with all this rainy weather. Of course, just be very careful out there. It's no time for speeding and no time for just being willy-nilly. Yeah. Well, the minister. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good day. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia is responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. You don't need. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not